Okay, here we go. So we just got class started. Couple announcements. Hopefully you saw the email that I had go out about. So I pushed the due date back to Friday for this project, just because I want to actually talk about the stuff today, like that I want you. Well, if you want to implement it, we have the means to talk about it today. Um, because I want to go through and show specifically what I'm looking for you to turn in, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how it's supposed to go because it can be a little confusing and it's not exactly, well, not say it's unclear, but it's difficult to understand what I'm asking for in words sometimes rather than just a video demonstration. So I'm going to go through and demonstrate exactly how to turn this thing in for this project and what we're looking for and how, not how to, I'm not going to walk you through every single thing, but kind of how to pull this thing off. And then also we're going to talk about Reaper today. So I want to kind of end our round one of sound design discussions on discussing Reaper. So I think I asked before, but has anybody used Reaper? Is anybody like, I'm curious, or has anybody used Reaper before? All right then. Um, so Reaper is, well, I guess let's go into that. Let's start with a Reaper discussion then. So Reaper is heavily used in the game industry, game audio industry, just because it's yeah, it's so stinking flexible. It's really inexpensive. I think it's $60 for a lifetime license, including free upgrades for the rest of your life, and it's incredibly powerful. Um, as a DAW, like every DAW does its thing, some better than others, and they all have their different uses. So for you to say that like Ableton is better than Pro Tools is like that's apples and oranges. They're two different products for two different things, right? So I mean, Ableton is awesome for what it does, but there's some things like that I can't stand. Like you can't edit audio in Ableton. Like that's something that like baffles me that you can't do that. Like why don't that they haven't added that feature in there? Like there's no pencil tool in Ableton. Like you can't get rid of mouth clicks. You can't do like editing, like actual editing in Ableton. But on the flip side, MIDI is just dreadful. Has anybody ever tried to MIDI map a surface in a controller in Pro Tools before?
Yeah.
Yeah, or like in Cubase. Or is any Cubase users here? It's like it's the most ridiculous thing ever. The fact that like I mean, when you start working with Ableton, you're like map to MIDI, turn the knob, done. That's all there is to it. In like these other DAWs, you have to go into these sub menus, into these things. You have to program these freaking things to get this thing to work, and it's just ridiculous. So that said, but like, so I guess what I'm saying here is that different DAWs have different uses and different pluses and minuses, and I think Reaper. I always discounted Reaper as like a cheap DAW. Like I just didn't think it was like I never took it seriously, just because I don't think the interface was all that cool. It didn't look that neat, and it just I always liked. I was a Nuendo guy, and I still am a Nuendo first. Like when I reach for any kind of audio editor, I always reach for Nuendo, just because I can do everything that I need to on it. It's so big and so powerful. So to me, I mean, with the exception of doing like clip launching and some of that kind of stuff, and some of the tools that are in Ableton, I just use Nuendo for everything. But except for I use Wavelab for mastering because Wavelab can do some pretty cool like batch conversion and mastering type stuff that you can't really do in with Nuendo. But that's just how I roll. So and it just so happened to be that that Nuendo has picked up and really been tried to become the DAW of choice in the game world. So it has that Nuendo Connect. So you can actually connect Nuendo to Wise, and I didn't demonstrate any of that, and I don't think it's all that important right away to talk about that. But there's some really, really badass features that you can that basically Nuendo and Wise talk to each other. So when I render out a thing in Nuendo, Wise goes in the project, uh, like it automatically updates your entire Wise project from Nuendo. It's pretty cool, and so you can do some pretty neat stuff there. But nobody else here is. I don't think. Does anybody here use Cubase or Nuendo? I'm curious.
Jeff, you showed me how to use Nuendo last time in critical listening,
That's
and
right.
got pretty good at auto tuning with it, and that's pretty much it. I know I can do a lot more than that, but I really like the visualization for the auto tuning, and it's just pretty easy to use.
That's right. So yeah, so basically what we did is we went through and I showed in one class like how to do auto tune in with Nuendo because it's built in and it's really good. And it's one of those things that like in Pro Tools fashion, you have to, Pro Tools is a decent DAW, but you have to buy everything on top of it, whereas Nuendo has everything built into it. Um, so but the interface once you get the hang of it, it's pretty cool. So, but let's take a look at some Reaper stuff here. So let me hide this.
Can we please just...
Hey, Austin, your mic's on.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So when you open Reaper, so you can. This is one of the things I've been evaluating Reaper for 156 days. So basically, you can use it unlimited by just it's unlimited evaluation, and it just say still evaluating. I think I'm probably gonna buy it just because I think it's a pretty neat DAW. But I'm gonna move this thing out of the way. But this is, I mean, it's kind of your classic interface. They, I think this is what a Reaper 8 or something like that, a Reaper 6. So this came out not that long ago, and there's a million tutorials on the web about Reaper, but most of them are a little bit older than this one right here. So I'm only going to go through the basics. What I think we all know how to use DAWs, right? So there's a few things I just want to highlight why I think this DAW is pretty neat. And I'm not very good at it. Admittedly, I'm still pretty green with this thing. There's still things I'm trying to figure out like how to do. But what's cool, so like, I mean, if you're at whatever, say you're visiting somebody on the other side of the country on vacation or something like that, and someone's like, "Hey, can you just edit this audio for me real quick?" And you needed a DAW like on somebody else's computer really quick. This whole thing, I mean, it's like I don't know, it's a few hundred megabytes. It's like you can download it. It takes like 5 minutes to install, and then you have a DAW running on any machine on the planet. It's like, and it runs on pretty much anything. You don't need the spec requirements aren't that high for it. But just like any DAW, this is just kind of your typical stuff. So again, I'm not going to go through all the like the basic DAW stuff. We know how to do all that. But what we want to do here, I want to highlight some of the things that I think are badass about this thing that make it completely different. That just kind of blow my mind with this. First thing is basically we want to look at this thing right here. So if I just double click and to add some tracks, I'll just call them track 1. So we have 3 different tracks in here. And we see our typical kind of, we have our inserts, our sends, and then it shows our IO. We have effects. So if I click on my effects, this is a little bit different with them. Well, actually, that's a different one. So that's like pre-fader effects. Or, yeah. But the big one here, let's close some of this, is that we have this thing called the matrix router. So what we're looking at right here is these little slash thingies right here. They're talking about how we're going to route the audio. And actually, I'm going to, how do I do this again? I'm going to show the master track on the right side of the menu mixer. I like, this is how I like having stuff set up. I always like having my mixer on the far right. Sorry if my windows, I'm not having it full screen because I have your tiles are, like your faces are on the right side here, so I can't make this thing completely full screen. But what's crazy about this is when I added a track, and here's what blows my mind. A track is a track is a track is a track. Let me just demonstrate why I think this is so freaking weird. Let's start with, let me just add some audio to this thing. Let's add some sound effects. Fear, that sounds cool. One of the things that I was trying to figure out, whoops, escape, whatever, go away. I don't want you to open it. I'm out. I'm gonna open it. So what I was gonna try to do is because I'm in Windows right now, is I wanted to set up my folders so that I could look at, so we've got this right here. This is all the metadata that goes with these tracks. So these are just WAV files right here, I think. So does it say type? So let's do these are WAV. So we can look at type here. I don't want to turn contributing artists on. I don't care about number. I don't care about album. But it would be nice. And so we've got like the year rating. So I could actually put a rating on these. So if I want to start rating my own sound effects libraries, this is pretty sweet. So I can go through and because at least this is a Windows thing. So when you're in Windows and knows you have a folder that's full of audio files, it thinks it's like a music folder, which is kind of annoying. I kind of hate it that it always just assumes that you're like, this must be you must be listening to music. You're like, well, no, we're pro audio people. We don't listen. Well, I mean, we do listen to music, but we have a lot more needs than what they're showing here. So I wish this title, I wish it would show like the broadcast wave stuff. But what we can do is on the more here, this is all a list of all the different stuff that you can show inside of the, let's do size. Where was that? Size. Um, so you can go through and click on some of the stuff if you want to start adding your own metadata to these things. It's a lot of stuff. Categories, car phone. I don't even know what some of this stuff is, but we'll say okay. So we can start to look at the size, and you can start to build out your folders so that they have like a little more meaningful information for you. Because like Fear 11 does nothing for me. I don't know what the hell that means, but it is what it is. I wish it could show like bitrate, sample depth, number of channels, that kind of stuff. Which I think you can probably go through and get that set up if you wanted to. But let's drag Fear 13 in here to track 1. And if we look at it, it's a stereo audio file. Are you able to hear this? God dang it. This is a problem with the Windows side of things. On Mac, it's so much easier. Let me see if I can. Let's see. Where's my. It's under my edit. View. My preferences. There they are. Audio device. Let me see if I can choose. I need to figure this out. Why I can't send. Okay, I think I can do this. I'm gonna send output range to. So what's gonna happen here is when I set this up, I'm gonna send it out the same output as my mic outputs. But if you talk to me, it's going to create a loop back. So just be aware that if you decide to say something on a mic, it's gonna loop back on you. Let me get some sound going here. So let me think how this works. So if I go out 3 and 4, let me try this. Oops. Who's listening to something? Someone's got their mic on. Can you hear that? Let's see where that's coming through. Why is that not coming through on in 3, 4 is no connection. Sorry, gotta bear with me for a second here. Oh, that's why. From computer into, I'm gonna go into 3 and 4. Why is it not playing? Sorry, usually I'm pretty good at this sort of stuff, but this is causing me some strife today. Was it under options? I'll try doing this for a second. Sorry, I'm trying to get my audio settings. How can I do this? Try this. Hear that? Sorry, so what it's doing is going from computer into the mixer. Not showing up on my mixer. Oh well, if I can't get it, it's okay. We'll make it work. I guess we want to no connection. Why is this saying no connection? All right, 2 seconds. And if this doesn't work, I'm moving on. Just something strange going on with this interface. Like it should show up as a connection, but okay, moving on. Okay, so you can't hear it. That's okay. But what you can see is that we've got a stereo track in there. And if you want, if like, it'd be nice to be able to hear it so you could actually hear what's going on in there. Where's my grid? Turn off my grid. So now it's smooth enable. Have my typical fade type stuff. You can double click on it if I want to change my fade out to be something like that. Apply. Okay. Just like your kind of typical DAW type stuff. Then what's also interesting is like, okay, so here's the Foley feet that I recorded. Oh yeah, also the other thing is, so on Canvas, if you want to use the Foley feet that I recorded, this is them right here. So I can create a Foley feet and I'd drag those in. So let's take a look at the project properties on this thing. So right now we're running at this is a 48 kilohertz sample rate 24-bit wave session. That's what my session is running at right here. But what's interesting is when I created it and I brought in a track, it didn't matter. It didn't ask if it was a stereo track or a mono track or anything like that. A track is a track is a track. And that's the craziest thing about with Reaper here is that it doesn't matter what kind of track it is. All tracks are the same. So MIDI tracks, stereo tracks, surround tracks, bus tracks, video tracks, they're all the same track. And if you're used to like me working in other DAWs, that's such a weird like thing to think about that you can have like different media on the same track is just strange. So right now what it did, and also even further, if I look at where's the view, the project view media babe. So this one right here is, let's see, source media. So I can mix media as well. So this track right here is at 44.1. This one is at 48 kilohertz. So it's resampling on the fly, much like the way Ableton does that. So in a lot of other DAWs, you can't do that. So Ableton and Reaper are the only two DAWs that I've seen that are able to have mixed sample rates inside of the thing. So what it's doing is it's doing an on-the-fly sample rate conversion, which is kind of weird. I like that's strange to me, but you have the ability to drag in multiple different sample rates into the same thing here. And one of them is going to be stereo, and this one's mono. So this one's 4824, this one's 44.1, probably 16-bit. Can I show the bit depth on this thing? It doesn't show bit depth. That's annoying. But what's even crazier is if I wanted to, I could add. So if I want to record into this track right here, so I want to record, I'll say what the input, I'm going to choose input, I'm going to have a launch key mini right here. I'll just say all channels, and let's do some recording. Zoom in so I can see what I'm doing. Save all. So now I have a MIDI track on the same track as my audio tracks, which is strange, right? So, and if I put on an effect right here, so I can choose, say something like retro log, sure. And now if I play this one, you won't be able to hear it, but you'll see it. So you'll see over here, we've got the little yellow meters are the MIDI meters, and the red ones are the actual audio. So it's very strange the fact that you can have MIDI audio and multi-channel stereo audio all on the same track. That's just bizarre that you're able to do that. So it's kind of this clever way that Reaper has the ability to change stuff. Not that you would actually do this in real life. It's just something that's strange to me. And it's one of these, it just changes the paradigm and it's freeing because you're like, now I don't have to worry about what kind of tracks they are. And I can freely drag media from one track to another without worrying what the kind of track style is or how it's set up, which is pretty neat. So that's the first thing I thought was pretty neat about Reaper is that it doesn't have that. So I'm going to get rid of on this. Let's remove that. Cool. So those are our inserts right here. So I could also do that same thing from over here. So your VSTIs just show up as an insert. So the other thing I want to look at here is the routing on this thing. So right now, if we want to consider the routing, the way we think about normal routing right here is that the routing is going down. The audio, we can imagine, say it's right here. It's coming, well, for this one, we'll say it's coming down here and being routed over to the master. And the reason it's going to the master output is because it's got this little green slash right here. If I click on this route button right here, we can look at where the audio is routed. So it's sending to the master send. This is like the input channel, so parent channels, and it says track channels too. So it's got track channels. So if I on this one right here, if I wanted to, this is track 3, I could set this one up to be something like this track is now 16 tracks wide. You can't see it, but there's meters. The meters here have 16 tracks built into it, 16 tracks wide. I can still throw a mono audio track into a 16 track wide, and if I press play, you'll see it showing up over here on the, like, it's playing out of the left right master, but there's actually 16 tracks across this thing right here. So it's kind of interesting that you can have you can choose multiple tracks with this thing, like the track count, and you can change it on the fly too, which is kind of cool. You can have 64 tracks inside of one audio track. So I'm gonna go back to this one, just call it good. But what we're seeing here is this little green slash means that it's being sent to the master audio send. So if I click on that and I turn off this master audio send, that little green slash went away. But here's what I think is the coolest thing with this, is if we look at the view and we look at the routing matrix right here, the routing matrix shows how the audio is being routed. So you can actually reroute the audio in any way that you want. So right now it's showing track 1 is coming in. So this is the source and this is the destination. So you can imagine it comes this way, then this way. So right now it's sending track over here is going to master, what is that? The master parent right here. So if I turn that one off, that has the same effect as what I just did before, where I turned that one off over there. So I can route this here, and if I want to route it to, say, I can't route it to itself because that'll create a feedback loop. But what I can do is I can route this to track 3 instead and turn this one off. If I go back over here, what it's doing is we see this is now a yellow slash right here, and we see a blue slash here. So the yellow is meaning it's being sent somewhere, and the blue is meaning it's receiving from somewhere. So in this one right here, if I click on it, it says I'm going to be receiving from track 1 right here. So I'm going to go back to track. I'm going to turn this one off. I'll play this one here, and we can watch our meters. And what's happening, that we can see track 1. Oh, it's record enabled. That track 1 is playing, and what it's doing is it's actually tracking going over here. So this is now a bus. So track 3 is now essentially a bus for track 1. But you can also what's weird is you can have audio on track 3 as well as where's my track 3? Let's close these up a little bit. So I can have audio on track 3 and it being a bus. So it's a little bit weird because it's like you can think about it. These tracks are completely flexible. So again, it's probably be poor form to do something like this, but you could send this thing. So right now, track 3 is going to be sending over, or track 1 is sending to track 3, but track 3 also has sound on it. So we're sending audio from there to there. And this is a completely oversimplified system that I have right here. Like, just delete that. I'm gonna go there. And so I can, but I also can send directly to the hardware outputs. So if I turn this one off and I go to right here, oops, no, delete that. Yeah, delete. Right now, what it's doing is track one is now playing to the hardware outputs, but bypassing the master output. So you can send it directly to the hardware outputs, or you can and bypass the master outputs right there. So there, it's just the routing in this thing is unlike anything I've ever seen before. It's incredibly flexible. So let's take a look at another example here. What I want to do is instead of having this as a master, I'm going to take like this is now everything is these are just raw by themselves. I can also add another track right here, and if you recall when I showed this up, we'll call this one parent, whatever. That if I drag this one up here, so parent is now right here, I can drag all three of these ones right here and drag them inside of this one right here. So now this is actually acting as a folder, but it's also a bus. So anything that all the audio here is now running through this one right here, so I can control all this audio. So so track one is still playing, but it's passing through this parent one right here. So I can fold that one up. Is it right there? Oops. Can't remember how to fold it. Oh, there it is. And I think I can fold it even further. Yeah. So I can fold this thing way down. And so you can still see the audio happening inside of this folder track. And I think I can change the track color if I want to. Set track to custom color. Let's do it pink. And actually, I should set all of those to that custom color. Do that same pink. And so now when I fold it this way, I can fold it up super small. And so your tracks can get much more complex. Can I fold? I don't know how to fold this one up here. I don't know if I can do it here. I feel like you should be able to, but I don't know how to. I don't know how to do that in the tracks down here. But you can get your edit window. You could combine. So this is a very big deal for sound design. So when you're creating things like weapons and really complex sounds that are multi-layered, having folder tracks is going to be a really, really useful tool, because essentially they're acting like buses. It's kind of like buses, but not quite. So it's kind of a weird way of thinking about it. So let's set up an aux send. So say if we want to do a reverb track. So a track is a track is a track. So this is just going to be a reverb track. So if I bring this in, and even Reaper comes with actually, so a fair amount of plugins that come off of it. So I've got reverb right here. So I've got these two different reverbs. So just reverb right here, and it's just impulse reverb, I think. Let's see, let's pull in. So it's got a full convolution reverb built into it. Shows you that there. The GUIs on this thing aren't very pretty, but they actually are pretty stinking. I mean, they sound great. They just GUIs aren't that useful. So call that there. And so if I want to send a little bit of the sound over to my verb, let's change the name of this one. That if I want to send from here over to here, and we'll send it from this parent one right here. If I open this one up, I can send I can do a send to reverb right here, and I can send how much I want to send to it. This is my reverb amount, but it also shows up over here. And I think that sounds okay, but I think this is going to need an EQ on it. So let's do an EQ. Let's just add one of their crappy EQs. That reverb is way too big. Can I, let's see. Well, I'll just leave it as it is. There's got to be some damping in there, or tail, or time. But I don't know how to deal with that right now. I've not played with this one. But we've got, again, you can't really hear it right now, but we can see that this is now being sent over to, the blue means it's receive, and this is sent, the reverb is sending from here to here, and then this track is being sent directly to the master. You can turn that right there, the master send. And we can also see that in our routing matrix right here, that this is the signal for that. This is being sent to channel, this channel down here for reverb, and then this is being then sent to the master. So again, this is an extremely powerful routing tool to be able to see what you're routing system here. But we can also look at it in a number of different ways. So I can look at it in wiring. So we can look at this, which is pretty stinking cool. We can look at how this almost reminds me of like Wise, where you can look at how the things are being routed in that one in schematic inspector. We can see that we've got our tracks 1, 2, and 3, which are going into parent, and then parent is being sent up to master right here. But then we also have a send for right here going over to the input of this one here, and then this one is being sent also over to the master. So you can get you can do some routing in here that's like pretty much you can't do in any other DAW. That's fantastic. Like you can do some really, really, really sophisticated routing that I think lends itself to a sound design workflow better than say some of these other ones. These other DAWs that we typically work with, they're built on this linear, they tend to work on a linear workflow, right? They're meant to be used from like on a timeline from like, I mean, Ableton maybe you'd say, and like Bitwig are a little bit different because you have clip launching. So that's a little bit different. So it's not necessarily timeline, linear, but it still has like a clock. So this allows us to look at it in different ways. We can look at grouping right here. So there's groups. I haven't spent any time with this, but there's like 64 different groups you can set up, and I don't know how this works at all. And then region render. We'll talk about this one here in a minute. But this routing matrix is insane. So the kind of what I'm getting to at the point here is that this DAW is so flexible. It can route anything, anywhere, anyhow, anytime. And when you're working with a game session, you're going to have a lot of weird hopping around and routing and orienting. And so this allows us to do some pretty sophisticated stuff. I'm going to add 2 more tracks right here. And actually, I just want to add some sound into. Actually, let's do this. Let's add a little bit just of something in there. Let's do impact effects. Whatever. Arrows. Body hit. These are funny. So I threw body hit in there. Let's zoom in on that. Where did it go? So let's do this. Where is that? Move to a new sub project. So here's another crazy weird routing thing. So if I hit this move tracks to a new sub project, I just opened up a sub project over here. So this body fall is it looks like it's its own project right now. But if I back out of it, it's actually this right here is a project inside of a project. So you can nest projects inside of other projects. You can create sub projects. So maybe you create an entire thing on sound effects, and one on vehicles, or one on footsteps, or maybe just a bunch of different Foley sessions. You can create one for fabric effects, one for silverware, and one for footsteps. And you can create these different sub projects inside of this master project right here. And you can actually nest projects inside of projects, which is also just wild. Let's just delete that. Remove tracks. So I don't know if that killed that project or not. No. So you can actually, I don't know if you can drag projects inside of projects. I haven't tried that yet, but I'm betting you can. So if I had another Reaper project over here, I could just drag it into this one and it shows up as a sub project inside of there. So it allows you to reuse tracks, which is pretty stinking cool. But let's look at how we actually render these things out, because this is the other thing that I think is crazy important. I hit on it when we were talking about with Nuendo, but one of the things with the exporting of tracks, let's do where's my 2 different things? So on this one right here, and one of the things I still don't know I don't know key commands in Reaper at all, so I'm trying to figure them out. But what I can do right here is if I want to drag this one right here, I'm going to create this timeline selection right here. So I'll call this one, well, I guess it doesn't really matter. But there's this thing right here where I can say option as item. Where is that? Insert. There it is. Region from time selection. What I can't figure out is how to do time selection from region select or something like that. But if I do region from time selection, what it did is it created a region up here. I'll do the same thing on this one over here. So let's shorten this one up a little bit. Actually, I'm going to let's trim this up, just make it shorter. This is all the footstep ones. So what I actually want to do, S cuts things up. So I'm going to cut this up just randomly right now into a bunch of different ones right here, into a bunch of different regions. And how do I, let me see if I can get an, select, I'm looking for a timeline or from selection. I don't know how to do that. That seems strange that that's hard to find, but whatever. It is what it is. um, so I'm just gonna do it from here because it sucks because you have to like eyeball it. And I think that one was, it's under item. Or was that? Or is it insert region from time selector? Shift R. Okay. So now I know what that is. So I'll do Shift R. Actually, I don't need to select. I'll just do it here. Shift R. Shift R. Shift R. Oh, the other thing that I saw somebody else, I was watching some YouTube tutorial on this. There's this thing under actions. This is something that's wildly cool about, here, let's see. You have these things called action list. You can write macros, and the macros in Reaper are insane. And you can write your own too. But people make like crazy macros that can do like anything. And this is also a big part of the game thing. This is, at least from what I've read, that the game dev people love it because you can create really, really, really complex macros that like reorganize your session and move stuff around and auto organize and rename, and it can do like basically you can automate all the tedious stuff that's really, really prone to failure. You can automate all of that stuff here. So these ones here, like, I don't know. There's like, I mean, it goes on for days and days and days and days. These are the ones that are built in, and you can download them. People share macros. So you can actually like, these are some MIDI assignments type stuff, but let's see what are in here. I was watching some videos of some of the people that created these insane macros that basically reorganize their entire session and set up all their timelines and set up everything. So they just drag in a bunch of sound effects, and then it goes, and it sets their entire session up in like what would take me probably an hour to get set up. It does in 2 seconds. It's insane. So they have this action list here, so you can create your own like macros. And I do this in Nuendo has macro editors too, and I've created some pretty awesome macros before, but not like what I've seen here. These ones are pretty stinking cool. So now what we have is a region list up here, and let me see. Let's do my region list view, region marker manager. Cool. So here's my name, the names, so I can rename these things. I'll call this one I'm just calling them generic stuff because this is not how it would be in real life. Okay, ready to matrix. So what you can do now, so I've renamed these foot 1, foot 2, foot 3, foot 4, 5, 6. Now if we want to render these things out, because just like in anything, you want to render out the individual clips. You don't want to actually go through and render out the entire track. So this lends itself to a nonlinear workflow pretty well. So if we go to render, so this is our render system right here. And if you were mixing down a song, you would say the source is the master matrix or master mix, and you would run bounds the entire project. So it would go from the first clip, the beginning of the first clip to the end of the last clip with a tail. So maybe you throw a tail on there because of 1,000 milliseconds. Maybe you have a reverb hit that has like a tail on it. So you'd want to actually not go just to the very end of this. You'd want to go a little bit further. And this is a tail of 1,000 milliseconds. And we can set this thing up like you can set your directory. Let's just do this to, I'm going to set this to browse for directory. Let's do new folder on desktop. Foots, I'll call it. File name, foots. So if we wanted to, we could say send foots out. It's just going to create a master track of a master bounce. And this is how you do mix. So I want to do this at 48 kilohertz at stereo, full speed, offline. So you can choose it, so you can render it, so you can actually hear it if you want to. So there's all these different things you can add here. And we want to send a wave 16-bit we'd want to do something like maybe 24. Well, we'll leave it at that. Wave 16-bit and bounce this thing out and say render one file. You can also render secondary output. So you can actually do two different formats at exactly the same time. So if you want to do a wave and an OGG Vorbis. So this is when we were talking, well, you wouldn't do this because we do the OGG compression inside of Wwise, but you have the ability to do things like FLACs and OGGs and these things that you can't do in other DAWs like Pro Tools or even Ableton or any of those. They can't do some of these more complex outputs right here. So you can actually do a secondary output if you want. But what we want to do is we want to get a little more complex with this thing. So instead of doing the master matrix, we want to do a region render matrix right here. So all project regions. So I could do selected regions if I wanted to, but so I could just select just the ones I want to. But I'm gonna go ahead and do all of them. And region manager. So I'm gonna say select. I want to. Oops. Is that color? How do I select those? Okay. Oh, region matrix. So you have this region matrix output right here, and I want to say I want to do the parent. I will do foot. I think this is how I do it. Okay, so what I did right now is I selected that I want these to go through because they're going to be routed through the parent right here. I could route them through their own tracks if I wanted to, instead of doing. If for instance this has a send on it, because this one does have a send on it, but I don't want the actual reverb to go. I don't want to use the reverb. I'm going to send this one out of this one, this one out of this one. So it's going to render those three files. Oh, I'm just going to say go ahead and do this. It's making my brain hurt a little bit right now. But basically, you can choose this really complex routing system. So right now I have 6 regions. So foot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I could say I can throw in wildcards too. So I can throw in things like foot. I want to throw in the project name on this thing. So this one's called, what is this project called? Oh, I don't have it. Project's not saved, actually. Should save this thing. X in desktop. Oops, I should have saved it into a folder. Because it's, no, it's right there. But, okay, I gotta get moving here. So what it's gonna do now is, I don't know what the shortcut for that is. Render. So I want to do routing matrix, region render matrix, 6 regions. So I'm gonna, if I add, since to desktop, I call it boom just for example. And what I'm gonna do is, in this wildcard, I'm going to say region. Is there a region thing in here? It should be option, position, length, media information. There it is, region. So it's going to name the thing region. And I'm going to get rid of this untitled right here. So what it is, you can see that it's render to, and it's called foot 1. It gives an example. So it's going to do foot 1, foot 2, foot 3, foot 4, foot 5, foot 6. Say apply. Oh, I did 44.1. Crap. Let's go 48. And I want this to be mono. Apply, render 6 files. So once you spend the time setting up your region matrix, oh, it's close. And if we go now, look over here, boom. We have our foot 1, foot 2, foot 3, foot 5, foot 6. So if you set your stuff up very, very particular in a particular way, it's going to import into Wwise in a way that makes sense. So these are going to be like your player 1 or character, death, foot, whatever. You come up with your own naming convention, but you can set up a really sophisticated export function inside of here so that you're taking a lot of it, because you're generally going to be working with upwards of 1,000 sound effects at a time. And for you to sit there and try to rename every single one of these as you export is ridiculous. So this region, this between this and the way Nuendo does it, these are the 2 DAWs that can do insanely complex exporting, which I don't know that I've ever seen any other DAW that can do this level of sophistication. So I think this is really, really cool stuff. So there's a lot more to Reaper. Oh, one other one that I think is really cool. So I have this thing called So I saved this thing. This one's called SFX modified. I can also open up. I created another Reaper file earlier, or actually, let's create a new one. So I create another Reaper file. I'm gonna just throw in the Foley feed again on this one. I'm gonna save this one on the desktop as I'll call it VO just for voiceover. And what I can do is now I have my VO one right here. Here's my sound effects. So I can open my sound effects. Come on. I can have two projects open at the same time. This is also something you can't do with any other DAW. So I can toggle, so I can open up my other, I can toggle back and forth between voiceover and sound effects. So I have two different projects open at exactly the same time. So you can't see it, but this one, when I click off of this thing, you'll see that these turn to offline. So what it does is it basically removes the audio, and the audio engine is not focused on this session right here. So this is what's happening. So when I click back on here, they call all the samples come back online for me. So it's not going to be using up resources in the background, which is cool. So this VO is sitting in the background, but it's not using up any resources. And I click on it, it came alive, and SFX went into like kind of dormant mode, so to speak. So you can have multiple things. And this is also a very big deal when you're working in game, because you're going to be working on multiple different facets of the game at the same time. And it makes sense to divvy up the different assets into different systems. So like dialogue or VO is going to be a completely its own session, and then you're going to have sound effects and Foley over here. You maybe have mechanical and engine noises over there. You may have music as a separate session, and so you're going to have multiple different things that you're working on, hopping on. And if you're working in a lot of other DAWs, you're all constantly closing stuff down and opening it up, closing it down and opening it up. So this is a huge time saver, being able to have all of these open at all at the same time. At a moment's notice, you can switch between different sound effects. And also when you're mixing, so you can keep that in your head and you're like, I want to be able to listen to it. You could consider also moving things into sub projects. Actually, let's try this out. I want to see, I haven't tried this yet. So I'm in sound effects. I'm going to close out VO, save it. If I can bring in VO into that, I wonder if I can just drag that in as a sub project. No, I don't know how to do that. I was wondering if you could just insert that as a sub project, so you could actually have projects inside of projects. I know you can't do it, but I just don't know how to. I don't know how to do it from an existing project. There must be a way to import it or something. But anyway, that is Reaper in a super small nutshell. But like it's free to download. I would encourage you to download it. I'm still using the evaluation thing. I think I'm gonna buy it, but just because I think it's so stinking flexible. It doesn't have any dongles or like crazy licensing stuff. It just works. It's just easy, and it's lightweight, it's fast, and it's cheap. So if you ever go work for a game company and they have a sound team, that sound team does not want to buy you Pro Tools or anything. So they're gonna make like this gets used a lot. So, and I spent out some time on our subreddit when they're talking about why this is used so much, and the big ones are that the routing flexibility and the export flexibility and the macros are insane what you can do with it. So anyway, that's a Reaper in a nutshell. So let's talk about this project. How I want to walk you through exactly how I want this project turned in for just real quickly here. So if I have Wise up, let's just open up just lesson 7, the last one I had open. So it's just like ready to go. Allow access. So here is so let's talk about what you actually need to have for the project. When we play Cube, where's my Wise thing? So are you hearing that one? Did you hear that shotgun? Okay. So it's something to do with Pro Audio. My Pro Audio routing does not like the way I'm working with this saving. Sorry, I gotta move my menus here. My chat went away. So this is the level that you need to do the sound for. You don't need to do sounds for any other like monsters or music. If you want to throw music in, you can. So if you want to throw music in here, you can. But this is you need like the shotgun sounds, all the weapon sounds, the footstep sounds, and that's what we're looking for in here. Is on this one right here. So. So all of those sounds are the ones that you're gonna want to replace. So I mean, technically, what you could do is you could go into one of these here and then just swap out the sounds for them, and that's the way to get it done. And if you're in a pinch, if you're running out of time, that may be the way to go. But you're gonna want to swap out all the sounds. I mean, there's like the problem is if you walk in this one, it's pretty huge. But uh, if you go in here, you're gonna have a lot of things to. What do you mean, Jake? What do you mean just drag them in like that? I don't quite. What do you mean?
Like you just showed that you could just like drag your own sound and just like drag it in there if you're in a pinch. I've just been going through all the old lessons and like doing it all over again. But like if I can just drag it, that's so much easier.
It is so much easier, but you're doing it the right way right now. And I know it takes a lot of time, but you're actually learning this way because
I'm learning a lot more, but it's definitely taking like hours.
I know. And but the thing is though, like it takes a few laps through this whole process to start to really sink in because the first time you go through it, it's like you're just trying to follow directions and you guys aren't really learning it. You're just kind of following instructions because there's so much information coming at you at the same time. So it's very difficult for you to process that. So I would recommend that you go through doing that. But yes, like in a pinch, you can start just dragging stuff in and it will work. Because you do have sound design and you're hunting for stuff. It's a daunting task, and this is a super small level, right? So that is a daunting task right there. So so I would recommend going through and doing it the right way. But yes, if you have to, yeah.
I'm just gonna keep doing it that way for sure for now. But like, it's just good to know for future, especially if it's like a much bigger project, and that's just so much easier than like having to go like delete it and then redo it or something.
Yeah, but but like on any other project you're going to work with, you're not going to have any kind of framework to start with, right? So you're going to have to start from scratch anyway. So that this you won't have this ability to do this again. But knowing that this exists, you can always go back and look at this stuff. One of my big beefs right here, though, is actually when I was playing it. What do you notice about the footsteps here?
They're so fast.
They're so fast. So how could we mitigate that? Well, the reason that's happening so fast is because they got player foot, whatever that it's foot player in here. I think it's like in somewhere in there. It's is it player foot or foot player? Yeah, it's foot player right here. So Deadpool baby legs, yeah. That basically it's playing too fast, and that's because this event is being called by the game that quickly. So they're sending one out there. That's like the running sound. So they're going do 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 do, and we can't. There's no visual sync to it. So it's not like they're going through an animation. So a lot of times when you're doing first-person shooters, right, there's going to be a head bob, that has that head bob when it runs, but this one doesn't have it. So this is just like this is kind of the old school FPS, which I like it. I mean, it's cool because it allows you to aim easier and faster. But I feel like the footsteps are too fast. So the solution for this would be number one, goes back to the game designer, like, hey, you need to slow those running legs way down. But there's no way you can do that. So if we wanted to change this, how could we change this? How could we modify it on our end to slow the footsteps down to make it sound a little more realistic?
Could we add like a silence or something every once in a while?
Yep. So let's try it. And I haven't tried this yet. So like this would be this. But what we could do is in our main character footsteps. So in here, we've got our containers, and I don't know if we'd have to do it. Yeah, we'd probably have to do it per one of these right here. But what I would want to do is add them into a sequence container. Where's my sequence container? So if I add this to here. So I'm going to do a sequence container. So what it's going to do is I'm going to add, let's rename this one. I'm not going to spend too much time on this. But what we would do is in this gravel right here. So what it's going to do is it's going to play it's going to play concrete, and let's add, so let's throw this into our playlist, and we want to add, another silence to go in right here. And where's this? I have to create a new sound source. Can't I just do it in?
I think you have to make it in like the audio editor part,
Just,
like as an SFX.
oh, that's right. You're right. Thank you. Yep. And the sounds, but it's usually a silence thing, right? So, yeah, there you're right. Okay. Sound source, silence. And if we did this, let's just do it half a second. That's way too slow. Like, well, let's do 0.2. 0.1. Yeah, let's do 0.2. So now if we're back in our sequence container right here, we want to, oops, let's call this one, rename this one. We got here, F2 is silence. We could reuse that one more in other ones. And now we want to grab that in silence here, general. And what we want to do is, don't want to loop that. Cool, I think. Yeah, so now what it's going to do is every time I play this, it's going to play concrete, then silence, then concrete, then silence, then concrete, then silence. And so you could go through and tweak the time on this thing to get it so it sounds like in a way that you would like it. You're probably going to have to go through and do the same thing on all of these ones here with tile, gravel, dirt, and gravel to get it to do the sequencing that you like. So that's kind of a workaround. You know, it's not the cleanest way, but in the heat of battle, you're just going to have to make it work. And so this is a way that you like right now we don't have the option to go back to the original game designer and go, hey, can you slow this down a little bit? That's a little crazy. So now when it calls it, it's going to call concrete, then it's going to call silence, then it's going to call concrete, then call silence. But yes, we'd have to go through and do the sequence for each one of these down here. And instead of footsteps, yeah, the switch container you have to make sure that the switch container is going to go to, yep, it's good. It's working. That the switch container, the switch container does propagate down into gravel sequence. So that would work. Cool. I would love it if you tried to employ this. I think that would be a really, really clever thing to do.
Wouldn't you have to drag gravel sequence into the like material?
So it looks like it's like, yeah. Oh, you're right. Yeah, you're right. Thanks. So
You have to swap them.
you do have to swap them. Okay, so it is a little more involved, but it does work. I'm sure. Yeah, with a little experimenting, you can get that to work. Okay, so here's what I want you to turn in, and save that project. Let's go to my bus. Oh crap! You know what? This is a bad example one. Lesson 7 is because it has all the extra stuff in there. Let's get out of that. Let's go back to projects. Let's go back to one of the earlier ones, like whatever, lesson 4. I'm just gonna use this one as an example. This one starts all the way from scratch. These are all defaulted. Good enough for what we're gonna be doing right now. But we're in our SoundBank editor window. So we have our SoundBank right here, main. So I'm gonna select these, and right now instead of under my user settings. So you're gonna send this to Cube, but for right now, I'm also, just to make this thing a little bit easier, I'm gonna override the sound paths, and I'm just gonna save that. Let's go here. I'm gonna go to my desktop. This is what you're gonna turn in. You can also, well, okay. Let's. Once you export it and try it out a few times, what you're gonna want to do is send it. I'm just gonna send it to my desktop, and I'm gonna create a new folder for it real quick. And I'm going to send that Mac goes there. I'm going to send PC is there as well. So desktop, Cube, SoundBanks, select folder. Cool. And now when I select generate all, it's going to generate those SoundBanks. Close. Now here's my SoundBanks. Wait, why didn't it make a Mac? Oh, I have to make a separate folder. I forgot. Okay. Let me delete all this. So I have to make a Mac and a Windows folder specifically. I forgot.
Can you combine them after and then zip them?
They have to be separate though. I think the Mac and the Windows, I think they're separate. I can't remember.
Right, but like, can you do that within a folder itself?
Yes. So
Okay.
I'm going to create a new folder here called Mac. And another new folder called Windows. And so that's the Mac one. Let's do the Windows one. Okay, generate all. So now in here, I have my Mac and my Windows sound banks. And what I'm going to do is then go up one level. I'm going to say send to zip. Go like this. Please, one of the things I would ask is that could you please, on your submissions, put your name in your submissions so that I can keep track of who, like, because what happens when I'm downloading, I download all the submissions and it says cube, and like I can't tell who it's from. I have to be very slow and methodical about it. It takes me forever. So if you could put your name in at least the parent zip file, and even better would be in the child folder would be nice too.
So is this just exporting the sound banks, or
Yep.
does this also come with the parent data to like have it be automatically imported into Cube for you to run it?
So
Like,
I'll
how
show
does
you.
that-
I'll walk you through this whole thing here.
Okay.
Oracle Cube. Okay. So inside of this one, so we just sent it to here. So it's 3 megabytes. And so this is what I would like if you're in let's bring up our class courses and music. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pretend I'm a student view. Let's go to assignments. This one right here, Wise Cube. Submit assignment. Choose file. And submit assignment. It's uploading. It's not too big. It's 3 megabytes. So if you want to go through, you can say look at submission details. So this is what it looks like for me when I get your stuff. And so it says Merkle Cube Soundbank, and I download this and I can work it. You guys are going to be doing a peer review, so that means you're going to download each other's and work with them. So I'm going to pretend that. So I'm going to go ahead and download this thing. I'm going to go ahead and just delete this one off my desktop, so it doesn't exist anymore. And I'm going to download this one right here. So let me download it. There it is. So I'm going to save it. It goes to my downloads folder. So let's close out this. I don't need this anymore. Let's close out a lot of my stuff. Windows here. So it's in my downloads folder. Oops. Save it to my desktop for right now. Okay. So what that did is that created this folder right here. So that's the one I just unzipped. I downloaded it, unzipped. You're going to be doing this for 3 of your peers. So I look inside of this folder. I'm like, okay, I see a Mac and a Windows sound banks right here. So what I'm going to do is then go over into my Cube, x86, Audio Kinetic, and this is different if you're on Mac. But I'm going to go Wise, Cube, sound banks, and I screwed this up before, so I accidentally deleted, put stuff there. Delete. So actually, this won't be here. So this is what it's going to look like. So on my computer, by default, it would look like this. So what I'm going to do is instead, if I want to test somebody else's sound banks, then I'm just going to I'm going to get rid of this one right here. Drag this one in. And now if I play Cube, it will work. So you're going to do this with 3 other people, and this is how I'm going to test it, right? So if I'm a Mac, you just drag it into the Mac folder, or you just drag it into the appropriate folder wherever you export it to get this to work for Cube. So you have to export both Mac and Windows for all of your projects. Yeah, Austin, you said something.
Oh no, nothing. I think I was just breathing, but I guess yeah, we're just swapping it out.
Yep.
I
So
gotcha, okay.
and you're going to swap it out. So this is how you make Soundbanks portable. So you're going to swap it out and so you're going to swap like maybe you want like whatever you had there. So like mine's called Windows OG. Well, so this is the old one right here. This is the one that came by default with Cube. So I didn't touch that one. So I just keep a secondary one. So if you rename them something other than Windows, it will not. Cube won't look in that folder. So you can keep different versions of it if you wanted to in here. Like, so if I wanted to, if I was going to like, let's drag this back out of here.
So like I could do like Windows dash personal.
Yep.
And then Windows dash insert person's name for project.
Yeah, and then you have to delete that if you want to use that. So it has to look like this if they want to use it. But yes, I would say
right.
right.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Just whatever one you want to reference, just use Windows only.
Yep. So you just take off that tail, and then you can use that there, and so that will include that.
For Mac, will it be just Mac or OS?
So I'm not in Mac right now, but it's basically the same thing. So it's just called Mac right here, and then it's basically in the same folder. It's the same. You have to get to it a little bit different, but it's still in Cube Soundbanks.
Gotcha.
But to get to it is a little bit different. So it's under Applications, Audio Kinetic. Or no, yeah, it's Applications, Audio Kinetic, and then inside of that there's the Cube, and you have to. It's just a little bit slightly different directory structure, but it's the same spot inside of Cube.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah. So we're starting to run out a little bit of time here. I know I kind of went through that pretty quickly though, but does that make sense? You guys understand what I'm asking?
Yes.
Marquis, what are you saying?
I feel like I was in the passenger seat of you just driving a car down a drag strip. And now we're at the end, and you're just like, that was fun, right? Yeah,
all you're
sure,
doing,
that was really fun.
all you're doing. I mean, I'm not asking you to do anything you haven't done before. So it's all the same. It's basically all I'm asking you to do is just export both the Windows and the Mac version of it. That's all you got to do, and zip it up and send it off. We've been doing the same thing all semester. Nothing's different.
Yeah, what's changed in the last 3 to 4 weeks? We've been doing it since then. We're just turning a video game now.
You're just turning in the sound banks, not the video game. So yeah, go ahead.
So when you generate the sound banks, you can just generate it to save in a new folder, and then we'll zip up those folders, and that's what we turn in?
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah, perfect. So we got another 5 minutes. So keep the questions coming. If there's anything you need me to show again, or anything that's up for discussion or fuzzy, I mean, I'm around, so you can hit me up if we have more questions.
And is it the entirety of the sounds, or I'm pretty sure you said, but I kind of just
your normal it's the sound banks. So all you're doing is turning the sound banks, and the only sounds that you need to recreate are for the default level.
Okay, yeah, that's one of the.
Because I mean, there's so many. I mean, there's so many monster sounds. There's so many music sounds and all that kind of stuff. That's way too ambitious for this first round.
If we have the monster sounds, is that fine?
Yeah, that's fine. We're not going to
Okay.
hear them because we're only going to be playing the first level.
Yeah. Okay. Damn. All right.
I am
Also,
glad you-
any of the processing that was put on it in Wise, does that get exported?
Yep.
Okay.
So the sound banks contains all of the information, like all the panning and automation and RTPCs and game syncs and all that kind of stuff.
so that'll show up in Wise when they bring it in. To
They're
their
not
session.
bringing. They don't bring
It's
it into
just-
Wise. You're not gonna. They don't open up a Wise session. They're only
it's
gonna
just
play
Cube.
the game. Yep.
It's just a cube.
It's just
Okay.
Cube. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Never mind. I was gonna have a follow up, but I think I just answered my own question. Okay.
That's a good question though.
Yep.
No, did you have did you have something else?
I was just going to say I'm glad that you sent out the thing saying we didn't have to do the monster sounds, because when I was looking at the event list, I was like, almost half of this is
I
monster sounds and
Yeah,
music
that's-
sounds
it's-
for other levels.
Yeah.
It's fun, but it's so for Game Audio 2, the second the class next semester, if you decide to take that class, we're gonna do a lot more like sound design stuff, and we're going to dig into a lot more of that kind of stuff. Right now, for the focus on this semester is going to be the mechanics of stuff. I'm kind of blasting through the creative stuff just because we just don't have the time. There's so much, because like we're already kind of behind, and we're getting into Unity starting next week. So next week is going to be big, and so this is where we go into game design, and and then we're going to go into Fmod and to Unreal. And Unreal is the shit. I love Unreal. I think it's badass. But Unity is also huge, and so we're gonna downplay some of it. Yeah.
Mirko, can you fill me in on this? Did Epic Games like curate and create Unreal Engine, or what is the deal with Epic's tie in Unreal? Because I know like a lot of their games run that platform, and it seems like a lot of the money from Fortnite made Unreal what it is.
Yeah. No. Well, I mean, Unreal came from. Do you guys remember Unreal Tournament? Anybody ever play that back in the day? Yeah, like I lost many hours of my life to that, many weeks of my life to that game, just sitting and just blasting my brother away for months. But so they developed Unreal Tournament as the engine for Unreal Tournament, and then they're like, you know what, we should open source this thing and let's just turn this thing out. Now I don't understand the history of what happened with, how I don't really understand how Epic got involved with Unreal, because Epic wasn't Unreal.
Yeah, I'm just like trying to figure out the politics of it all, because when you go to like Epic's game launcher or their browser, every single thing is just like, we are Unreal. Like everything points to Unreal kind of.
Yeah.
And like you can download Unreal from their game launcher browser, like their game site.
That's the weird. It is a weird thing. Yeah, the game, you have to use Epic Launcher to get to Unreal Unreal.
So you do have to use that. Okay, I was wondering.
Because that's the only way it works.
I think they developed it, or at least started developing like Unreal 2 or 3 or whatever the first Gears of War ran on. Because when Gears of War came out, it was such a big deal that they had used like 20,000 different shades of brown or whatever for the first Gears of War game.
Yeah. But I mean, obviously, if you're watching the news right now, of course, like, you know, Epic is in a huge battle with Mac right now, and the App Store, and that whole debacle and that kind of thing. But I'm always fighting for the underdog. But it's funny because I read a big article on like you know, they're like Epic is playing the underdog, but they're not really the underdog in this thing. And plus, who plays games on Mac anyway? So whatever.
That's true.
Has anybody played Fortnite on like iOS? Is it even on iOS? I don't even know.
It was. They took it down.
Yeah, but does it work on iOS? Like, is it?
It did. It was shit though.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't necessarily love Fortnite as the game, but I was super curious, so I gave it a shot. Like I tried playing on the Switch. That's also shit. But it was interesting. I don't get how people can do it. You're just basically hiding in a bush the entire time because you can't do anything.
So it's really interesting. I posted I'll repost that link. They show the making. There's a whole documentary series on the making of the sound for Fortnite in Wise. So Wise was used for Fortnite, and it's like a 7-hour like documentary on it. They show how they do all their like layouts and everything. They have something like 10,000 units inside of Wise and stuff. It's insane how big it is.
I wonder, like, I've been wondering how they do that, because I started playing a different game by Epic like 4 days ago called Spellbreak, and it's basically the same thing. It's like mage and sorcery version of Fortnite, but it's like simplified, right? So it's not as busy. You're basically casting spells and flying through the air. It's like giant, massive